everyone, it's Stephanie here and welcome back. In today's video, we are going to be using some of the new March release products. We're going to use this new Hoppy Friends stamp set. This is a 4x4" set, which is a newer size we've started, and I love the images in this set. That one little bunny there that doesn't have the flowers is my favorite. And I also have the balloon, shaker, window, and frame dynamics. So this is an older set, but if you look at this window die here that cuts out the window of the balloon, if you turn it upside down, it actually looks like a perfectly designed Easter egg. So I decided to use it on this card and create a really big Easter egg as a shaker and then have a little scene kind of built around it. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to stamp out my images. I have the bunny and the little chick. I decided to use these two because they kind of face each other. So I stamped both of these images onto a piece of white cardstock with extreme black ink, which is a Copic friendly ink since we are going to be using Copics to do the coloring. And then I'm also stamping a bunch of Easter eggs, and I didn't use my MISTI to do this since it is just a single little stamp here, and it would have taken a little bit of time to shift the paper around. It was so much easier just to use my acrylic block and just stamp out a bunch of those eggs. So now I'm just going to go ahead and do all of the coloring with my Copic markers, and I do have this sped up quite a bit just to kind of get through the coloring a little bit quicker. I'm not doing anything too fancy here. I'm just doing some basic coloring. I want to have a bit of a darker shade around the outside of the images. You can see with the bunny there, I used the darker warm gray on the outside, and then just kind of blended it into the lighter color on the inside of his face and kind of his body area. For the little chick, I used 3 shades of yellow and concentrated the darker color at the bottom and kind of lightened it as I went up. And I also gave both of them a little bit of pink on their cheek. For the little Easter eggs, I'm using some shades of purples, aquas, pinks, and the same yellow that I used on the little chick. And I decided to color 7 of these to include on the scene. So I just kind of used the lightest color first, added my darkest color at the bottom, and then used the medium color to kind of blend both of those colors together. So now that we have the coloring done, I'm going to set that aside and we're going to move on to the background pieces that we need to create for the scene. So I have 3 different panels cut out that I've cut with the Wonky Stitch rectangle dies. And this first one here is going to be the background that we're going to build our scene on. So I'm going to add some cloud detail onto this one here to have the sky. So I'm using the mini cloud edges stencil, and I just added some broken china ink all the way down that towards the bottom. I didn't worry about covering the very bottom because we're going to cover that with the grass. And then for the grass layers, I'm just using these other 2 panels here, and on one of them I'm adding the twisted citron to both ends and a little bit of mowed lawn to the edge just to kind of give it a little bit of definition. And we're going to cut out 2 grass pieces from that one. And then for this one here, this is the very back piece that we're going to add, and I'm just using straight mowed lawn on this one to give it a little bit of a darker look and provide some nice contrast. So I've die cut all of my colored images there. You can see them up top. I just used the coordinating dies. And then I also need to cut out the grass pieces now that I have the panels all inked up. So I have the Grassy Fields dies, and I'm going to use the larger one on one end and the smaller one on the other. And then I'm also going to use the snowdrifts die to cut out the darkest panel here. And that's going to be the very background of the grassy part of the scene. So I have them all die cut here, and you can see when I layer them together, I have them die cut so that one kind of peeks out from behind the other. So I made sure to kind of go tall at the back and kind of go shorter as I made my way to the very front piece of the grass. For this darkest piece of grass, we're going to adhere it directly onto the background panel because we need to die cut our egg window that we're going to create the shaker with. So I want to have that adhere directly to the panel. So I'm just getting the balloon window die here, and you can see that when I put it up to the balloon and have it the way it was intended, it fits into that balloon shape. But when I flip it upside down, it is a perfectly shaped Easter egg, and it's going to go great with our little scene that we're creating. So I'm just kind of positioning this onto the background. I want to make sure that my middle layer of grass is going to layer over it nicely. So I'm just kind of putting that in place and figuring out where I want the egg to be die cut. And then I'm just running that through my die cut machine, and I have this great egg opening now that we can add the shaker pouch into to create our shaker. So I have the pouch here, and once again we're going to flip it upside down so it will fit into the opening. And I'm just going to use some 1/8 inch score tape, or this might be 1/4 inch. It doesn't really matter as long as you kind of have a nice strong adhesive all the way around that window opening. So I'm just adding the score tape directly around the opening and removing the backing. And then I'm just going to fit this right over top of that shaker pouch. And the little lip on the sides of the shaker pouch is what's going to adhere to that adhesive, and it's going to hold this in place. Now, because we are going to fill this with sequins and then cover it with a piece of paper to kind of seal everything in, we need to make sure that we have adhesive all the way around this once again, which is going to hold the pattern paper that we're going to add to it right in place, right against the edges of that egg, and nothing is going to escape once we have it all together. So I have a piece of polka dot paper here. I have a purple one. And you can see in this other sample that I created, I used a pink polka dot paper and I used colored sequins. For this sample, we're going to do purple polka dot paper and we're going to use clear sequins. I thought it would be a nice change to kind of see the difference with the purple in the background and then the clear sequins, which will let the focus stay more on the colored images and not so much on the sequins inside the shaker. I ended up really liking both versions, both the colored sequins as well as the clear. So now that we have the Easter egg in place, we have the fun pattern paper on the background, our sequins are inside of there and they shake all around, we need to add the rest of the grass detail so that we can finish the scene. So I'm first adding that middle layer on foam adhesive so that it's raised up over the dimension of the Easter egg. And then I'm adding that very top layer with just regular adhesive right onto the middle layer of the grass. And one little tip that I did want to mention is if you're creating a scene like this where you have a bunch of different images that you kind of want to tuck underneath, so you're going to kind of tuck it down into the grass area, when you add your adhesive to the different pieces of the grass, just don't put as much at the very top, and that's going to allow you to be able to kind of tuck the other images down underneath because you won't have to fight with the adhesive under there. So I'm just going through now and I'm going to quickly add all of the Easter eggs and the characters. So I put the bunny at the very front of the design and the little chick kind of tucked into the grass. And now I'm just going around with all of the eggs and tucking them into all of the little grass pieces that I've added. And you can see there with that pink one, I did have too much adhesive, so I had a hard time kind of tucking that down in there. But I did get it in place and I finished off with the purple and yellow sequins on the left side. And now we have this adorable little Easter scene where we have all of these Easter eggs kind of hidden in the grass. We have the adorable characters to go with them, and then we have that really fun large shaker Easter egg. For the sentiment on the card, I'm stamping Hoppy Hoppy Birthday, which is also from the same stamp set. And I just stamped that onto a sentiment banner and trimmed it down, and then I just adhered it directly to the card with regular adhesive. And then I also added a few clear sequins with some Stardust stickles on the center of those. And then I'm going to finish off the characters by adding a little bit of detail with some gel pens. So I used a black gel pen to kind of darken up their eyes and the little bunny's nose. And then I also added some cute little dots to their cheeks and some stripes and polka dots to some of the Easter eggs. So the only thing left to do now is to add our finished panel to our card base. So I am using a Grout Gray card base to kind of match the bunny image that we colored. And I'm pressing that down, making sure not to touch any of the wet stickles or any of the gel pen detail I've added since it's probably not dry yet. And then our card is finished and we have this really fun Easter shaker. And here's another look at that original card that I created. I used some little enamel dots instead of sequins to dress up the area around the sentiment. And I also used the pink pattern paper with the colored sequins. So that finishes our card for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I really appreciate you being here. If you haven't already, go ahead and click that subscribe button to be notified of future videos, and I will see you in another video soon.